Very good to meet you once again. And many congratulations on a host of successful admits. So, maybe for our audiences, it would be best if you could start off by introducing yourself, talk about the kind of admission outcomes that you've received, and how does it feel?
Sure. It definitely feels amazing. For an introduction, my name is Sunmeet Gulati. I was born and brought up in India, and then I went to the US for my undergrad. I graduated from University of Michigan, majored in economics. Then I worked for 2.5 years in an allocator world on the private side. And then I decided to go for my master's. So that's when I met you, and we went through the entire process. I got admits from Yale, Cornell, and NYU. I also got a few admits in UK, but Yale was my top choice. I'm definitely very happy and grateful that I got where I wanted to.
Brilliant. This is fantastic news. Maybe give the people a sense of your academic and professional profile, and then we can probably take a deep dive in terms of what your approach was to preparation, how did your narrative take shape, and so on and so forth. But first, a little bit more detail in terms of the kind of work experiences you've had, what kind of undergraduate you've had, what's the total amount of work experience, and how did it translate into what you wanted to apply into?
Sure. So my journey started at San Jose State University in California. I went there for 2 years, majored in economics, but I was very clear that I have to transfer to a better university. Michigan, it worked out. I was there for 2 years. I majored in economics. I also minored in entrepreneurship. So while I was at Michigan, I was still not sure what I want to do. I started joining some investment clubs, and at the same time, I started building my own portfolio, started reading a few books on investments. So that's how I got interested in finance. And then on my personal journey, when I was applying for my green card, I had to invest some money in the US. And that's when the real life experience began. I started doing my own due diligence on the private funds, how private markets work, how the real estate works, how is it dealing with lawyers. I went through the whole process myself by talking to people, and I invested a good amount of money. In my last year, I did an internship with an endowment fund called NYU Foundation. So that gave me exposure to the allocator world. It's a good balance of quantitative and qualitative analysis. And at a very early age, you get to meet a lot of very important people. So I really loved what I did during my internship. That's when I decided that this is what I want to do. And in my last semester, I started applying for all the endowments and foundations jobs for an investment analyst. And then I decided to go to UNC Management Fund, which is based in North Carolina. I joined there. I worked there for almost 2.5 years. I was on the private side. So I covered everything from venture capital, buyout, growth equity, energy and oil, real estate. It was also a very small team. I always wanted to be a big part of a small organization, not a small part of a very big organization. I got a lot of exposure in those 2.5 years. I met a lot of people who are very important. In my normal life, I wouldn't be able to meet these people. For example, I went on a trip to international waters in an oil rig. Normally, as an individual, I cannot buy that experience at all. So these kind of experiences were life changing. But while I was at my work, I realized I lacked certain finance knowledge because my undergrad was in econ. It was not heavily finance focused. So I was like, I want to study finance, specifically get that exposure. Second reason was all my network was non-finance people. So if I want to stay in finance, I want to build a network focused in finance. So that was my rationale behind why I want to go for a master's in finance. And Yale offered this very specific program, Masters in Asset Management, which was exactly what I did. So it's a subset of finance. In finance, you have investment banking, asset allocation, consulting, and all of these things. I think Yale is the only college that gives that very niche program. I was very interested in that program and I successfully got in.
Excellent. And thank you so much for sharing these detailed views on how your journey was. But let's ask the most important question first. A lot of people are driven to do an MBA. And given the fact that you would have about 2.5 years of experience at the time of your matriculation, probably MBA was not the most appropriate choice. You have lesser experience than what is typically mandated. So How was your thinking when you were deciding between a master's in finance or asset management, those kind of programs versus an MBA program?
MBA program, for some people, it makes a lot of sense. My manager explained it in a very good way when I was discussing this with him. He said there are three kind of people who go for MBA. First kind is people who are switching their careers, like people who were doctors, people who were engineers, and they want to go into consulting or they want to pivot their career into something else. So they go get an MBA degree and then they transition into consulting or investment banking or something else. This is the first category. Second category of people is who need promotion. Like it's a requirement by their organization, and their organization tells them that, oh, you need this education qualification to get promoted. So go get your MBA. The third kind of people who are not sure what they want to do. So they just go for their MBA. They're like, I don't know what I want to do. I'll just go for my MBA. So they go there to explore. For me, I was very sure that I want to stay in finance. I did apply to two MBA programs, but that was my last backup. I also got in Cornell's program and NYU Masters in Finance. But the reason I did not choose that because I got into Yale. That was more specific to my field as compared to a Masters in Finance. And MBA is more generic. We also had deep conversations about it. And I was very thankful to you that you guided me correctly that if you are sure about your field, you should not go for a generic MBA program.
Okay. And given the fact that at least after a long time, that number of applications for MBA programs has declined. Also, some sense that a generic MBA program may not give you those deep skills that get you ready for entry level management jobs. There is a general feeling that the ROI on an MBA program is lower. Do you agree with that? Anything that you would want to add to in terms of context or probably advice in terms of what kind of people may want to do an MBA program and what kind of people may want to do an MS in finance kind of programs?
Sure. I definitely think the ROI on MBA has declined. Earlier, it used to be like, oh, you did your undergrad, you worked for a few years, you got your MBA, you got promoted. That was the scale. But now things have changed a lot. Now companies want people who can actually do the job. They need someone who can get things done. So I think it only makes sense for you to get MBA if you belong in the first two buckets. First is your company needs you to get an MBA, they're sponsoring it, or go get an MBA so that we can promote you. Second, if you're pivoting your career, I don't think other than that it makes sense to get an MBA. And if you're getting an MBA, it only makes sense now to get an MBA from the top 10 or top 15 business schools. That's it. So and in terms of masters in finance, I think people who are sure that this is what they want to do, like they should go and build those niche skills which are relevant to their industry. And in that, again, there are categories like Princeton and MIT. They have very quant heavy programs. People who want to go into quant trading, those are the best programs for them. If I want to go into investing, not specifically trading, I would want to go in asset allocation, something like Yale offers. So, like you need to research your program and be very specific in your research, like what am I getting out of this program and what I'm learning and how is it going to help me in my career.
Excellent. And that's probably the best segue into my next question, which is about the process that you adopted to apply and get ready for these programs. Some of the things that we did together, or you started doing on your own in terms of the research for particular kind of schools, particular kind of programs. So maybe give us different stages of that process. And if there are pieces which are not very clear, we can ask you specific questions about that.
Sure. So I think while I was at my work, I started planning that, okay, I'm going to leave my job in 2 years and then I'm going to go for my master's. It aligns with my generic timeline. Then I started researching for universities and the programs that are out there. I started talking to people in my industry, what they are doing, people who did those programs from universities, and people who decided to do CFA instead of going back to university. So I started understanding their rationale behind why they did what they did. That's when I decided that, okay, I'm not going to go for CFA. I want to go to university and get a college education. And then I started researching for programs. And that's when I met you. And it was very helpful. You need someone you can talk to about this. That's the main mentorship part. I need someone I can call and ask questions and I have a discussion, like person who is in this industry and who is aware of what's happening. And the main part was you have also done your master's in finance from MIT. And I was looking at that program. So that really attracted me too. So then we finalized programs, we did discussions on that. And then we went through the whole profile building and not even about writing essays, but writing your life story. And I think I told you this after completing assignments that you gave me. It was also somewhere a little frustrating because I'm like, this is too much effort. It was a lot of work. But then once we were done through the process, I was very glad that I did that. And I said, oh, I have written my entire life story. I can use it when I write my autobiography. It was a very detail oriented process. Like I got to know things about myself that I had forgotten. So yeah, we went through that whole process and then we did all the essay writing, all the letter of recommendations. You need to ace every single process. Being detail oriented on every single step is the most important thing. So yeah, went through all the steps, did my interviews with Yale, with NYU, and everything worked out.
Excellent. Our audiences are fairly smart, Sunmeet, and they know about this process. So I'll ask you some difficult questions. So the first difficult question is, given your experience, which is a slightly different one, being on the allocator side as far as capital is concerned, and also a niche experience, not a lot of people are able to get that kind of experience early on in their career. Despite that kind of an experience, and I remember you were recently promoted as well. So how is it that you were ready to apply to the master's program? And how has that experience helped you prepare for it?
So if you look at the class profile of the Yale program, most of the people come right out of the undergrad. There are 20-30% of people who are working professionals. Again, going for masters, there were two reasons. First, I did not get a genuine finance knowledge when I was at college. I took a few classes, sure, but it was more focused on economics and entrepreneurship rather than finance. So I genuinely wanted to study finance. Second reason was I want to build a network of allocators. So if I have a batch of 60 people, these people, assuming they got into Yale, they are very smart, intelligent people. These highly intelligent people in the next 15, 20 years are hopefully going to be very successful. So I want to invest. This is my investment in the future of the industry. These people are going to be future allocators. So that's why I want to build relationship with them today. I met a lot of people during my work. You cannot build the same level of relationship that you can when you are at college. It's not the same relationship that you have with people at work. So I want these people, these future allocators, to be my best friends. That's what I'm investing in right now. Secondly, I had an option to do a CFA, but I would rather spend money on a college because college experience gets you into a community. Here, I'm just studying in my room and giving an exam. I didn't want to do that. I want to go to college. I want to meet people. And it gives you a sense of community because now I'm connected to everyone who ever went to Yale. I went to Michigan. So I'm a part of that club and I will stay a part of that club till I die because I went there. Whenever I see someone from Michigan, I definitely talk to them because it's a sense of belongingness. Like this is my university. So similarly, I wanted to get into Yale communities. That's why I decided that I'll go for that program and not a CFA.
This is a very detailed answer and a very honest one, Sunmeet. Thank you for that. A lot of people struggle when they are thinking about their essays, especially given the fact that many of them have become practitioners. Their ability to capture their life story in a single page in a short essay is something that gives them the jeepers, if I may. So, how is it that you approached the process? How is it that you were able to abstract the core of your story into one or two essays? How was the process like for you?
Sure. And this is what I met you for. This is what I needed guidance with. I have 20 different stories. Which story do I present and how do I present it? This is the main part where I needed guidance. So that's what you really helped me with. The first step was like writing down every single thing, whatever you did in your life. That was a very time consuming and a very detailed process. Once we had all the stories, then we met multiple times for weeks deciding and shortlisting, okay, this is the story we can use. And then we built storyboards, which were like 15 or 20 different stories. And then we were like, okay, now let's look at the questions and then see which story fits. Your mentorship was very helpful in that because I have 15 different experiences for one essay. How do I show it there? Your guidance really helped me there.
Oh, thank you so much, Sunmeet. I'm glad that I was able to help. Again, drilling down a little bit further, the blank page scares a lot of people, right? You've got a story in your mind, still people are afraid of that blank page. And in that case, either they use ChatGPT completely, which probably is not a great idea. Everyone can identify what a ChatGPT
Yeah.
writing is like. So, how did you approach that blank page? How is it that you start writing and got into flow and eventually get to a point that you could say that, look, this is my final draft and this is what I want to submit?
Sure. So like when we had, sorry, 15, 20 storyboards, then I decided, okay, I'm not going to write one essay. I'm going to write three essays for this one prompt. And once I have written three essays, which are three different stories, then we sat and discussed which story looks better. So I think the blank page thing was, I don't know what to write, but you need to start writing. Once you start writing, it becomes very easy because then your mind starts flowing. Okay, I have 15 options. Okay, I'm going to choose this. And these are the top three options for this essay. I'm going to write these three essays and then you go from there. So I think having that storyboard really helped me so I can pick and choose which story I want to present. Because the first major step is writing something on that blank page. Editing is the easy part, writing something is the hard part. So once you have written three essays per prompt, then you can edit it. That became very easy.
Did you change those stories depending upon what the school was, or your core essence of the narrative remained the same across all the schools that you applied into?
I think my course was the same. I wrote one master SOP, which I then used to write my essays. That master SOP, I think 2 or 3 pages, and it contained all my major life stories, my work experience, my learnings from my work experience, my internship, my personal investment journey, my personal portfolio construction journey, my rejections from the investment clubs at Michigan, and then later becoming the vice president of those clubs. So it contained all those major stories. I did not change my narrative. The stories remain the same, but how you present them change a little bit. Okay, sometimes you would talk about the challenges. Sometimes you would talk about how you felt. I think it depends on the essay. For NYU, I remember they were focused on EQ and IQ. So I had to talk about what did I learn emotionally from this? How did I overcome my emotional baggage from this challenge? How did it help me build a strong mindset? In some other university, it was more about the quantitative metrics of what did I learn. Like there was a 15% improvement in the portfolio. The core story, how you present it changes a little bit based on the essay.
Understood. A lot of people also struggle with the interview process. Tell me how that process was like for you, and what were the learnings that you may want to share or advice for other people?
Sure, I can give you my interview strategy. The base level is you need to research the university. You need to know the program in detail, the courses, the professors, and then you need to answer these questions like why should they select you? Why do you need this program? And what will you get out of this program? You need to be very clear with your intentions with these three questions. And then once you research this, then you start researching people because at the end of the day, it's human beings who are going to make the decision. So I researched every single admission counselor. I researched all of them. What was their work experience? They had given interviews earlier in their life. I learned a lot from those interviews about them. And then I talked to them, conversed with them in the way that they would want. It's also a person to person thing. So do research on your program, have a good resume. You should have very clear answers on why this program, what will you give back to the community, and what will you get out of this community. And talk to people who are doing that program right now because you'll get insights that you otherwise would not get. So I talked to 3 or 4 different students who were doing the program. I learned a lot from them. And also ask good questions. Don't be scared to ask questions. I asked my interview, what is one feedback that you have gotten from students on how to improve that course? Remember, you are testing them as much as they're testing you. It's also a big decision for your life. So you need to be confident enough to ask those questions. Don't be rude, be confident.
I think this is one of the standout qualities of yours that I've seen right from the beginning. You work hard. And when you work hard, it shows. You work hard on your essays. Background material for your essays was running into well over 25, 30 pages. I think that helped you distill the core into those pithy narratives that you were able to construct. You worked hard in terms of reaching out to people, talking to them, getting their perspectives about the school that you are getting into. And that helped you be ready completely as far as the information is concerned in terms of interviews. And even after the interview was over, I remember in some cases you were waitlisted. You were constantly on the matter and not letting it slide. That persistence, to my mind, is the most important quality of yours. And that is something which is the biggest indicator to me, right from the point go, that you are going to get into a good school. So I see no surprises there.
Yeah, that is another thing. They just leave the process. They're like, oh, we have applied, we'll hear back. No, don't disturb them, but be communicative. When I was waitlisted at Yale, they told us to wait for 2 weeks. But as soon as I hit that 2 week deadline, I emailed them, oh, what's the feedback? I set up a meeting with the admission counselor. We had a conversation. You need to be very active in staying in touch with people, but also do not overdo it to a point where you're disturbing them. Be proactive in your communication because they want to see if you're genuinely interested or not in the program.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about the interview first, and then we'll get into this because I think there are a couple of things I want to understand as well. A lot of time people say that it's a personal interview. You should not prepare too much. In fact, I remember that was my advice to you as well. Because often what happens is that when you think about one answer again and again, it kind of stays in your mind, and your response at the time of the situation may become artificial instead of spontaneous. So, yes, you get the information, you talk to people who are related to the program. That's like a background preparation. But did you research the specific questions that you could potentially respond to?
No, I did not research specific questions because I was like, I want to know who I am. Again, there were three major questions that I wanted to answer. Like, why do I want to do this program? What will I add to the program? And what can I contribute once I'm out of the university? Can you answer these three questions very clearly? These are the only three questions I focused on. I did not look at 25 different questions I should prepare for an interview. No, I did not do that. I just read all my study boards because, again, these 20 stories are my stories. So I refreshed my memory because sometimes when you're in an interview, you forget what you did. So I read those stories a few times and then I was clear about these three questions. So if you are getting into this university, the last few years have prepared you for this interview. You cannot prepare for this interview in a week. This won't make you that person who will get into the university. What you did in the last 3, 4 years, that prepared you enough for the interview.
Very well said. Was there a stage, Sunmeet, where you seriously questioned whether you would get in?
No, it might sound overconfident, but once you have submitted your application, I do not expect till I hear back. So once I've heard back from Yale that, oh, you have received an interview, like it's the second stage was, yeah, you are moving forward to the next stage. It was a pre-recorded interview, Q test. I don't remember how many questions, personality test, and a written test. So once I knew that I have moved to the second stage, then the ball is in my court. I was like, now if I fail, it's because I did not work enough. And if the decision is based on my work, I'm not going to lose. I'm going to get it done. So once I moved to the second stage, that time I was like, I'm getting in. And the funny part was I ordered Yale merch before I got in. I ordered my t-shirts of Yale before I got in because I'm going to do everything that I can and I'm going to get in. Yeah. The first stage, obviously, you are not sure. So that time I was like, I don't know. But once you hear back, then it's on you.
Brilliant. I think full marks to you on your hustle and persistence. That is the single most determinant in terms of what impacted your outcomes. Looking back, I think one of the things which I see is that a lot of applicants focus on achievements and a little less on reflection in terms of their entire journey. How was it for you in terms of the balance between achievements and reflection?
Sure. I think I'm in general a reflective person. So when we were going through that process, even when I was writing my storyboards or my life, I wrote it down in the process like, oh, this is how I started. This is what I did. This is what I learned. And this is what I could have done better. This is what I learned. These were my mistakes from these things. So I think the balance was fine for me. Yeah.
If you were to think about your essays, were they more reflective in general, or were they more driven by objective narration of your achievements? or a bit of both?
I think it was a great combination of both. And again, that's where I needed guidance because I did not know should I focus more on the achievement side or should I focus more on the reflection side. You need to find the right balance, and that's where the mentorship helped me out. Okay, what is the right balance? So is this essay too reflective, or is this essay like just talking about my achievements and nothing else? Finding that balance is where you helped me out.
I was glad to be of assistance, Sunmeet. A few final questions before I let you go. You mentioned earlier about the balance between chasing the admission team for feedback, for follow ups, and not disturbing them. What is that right balance? Give us some objective mechanisms that a student would be able to figure out, look, this is what I need to do, this is what is strictly off limits.
Sure. First of all, if you were rejected in the first round, do not ask for feedback because they are not going to give you feedback. There were thousands of people who applied. You asking for feedback, they're not going to do it. When I was waitlisted at Yale, they said in their email that they will reach out to us within 2 weeks. And it was very clearly mentioned do not email us till we reach out. So I waited for 2 weeks, even though I was very tempted to email them. I was like, no, I'm going to stay patient. This is about following instructions. They clearly mentioned do not reach out to us. I'm not going to reach out to them. Second advice is follow instructions. As soon as that 2 week deadline hit, I emailed them. Oh, I haven't heard back. I would like to catch up. And that's when they reached out and they were like, okay, let's catch up and let's do a feedback call. So then I had a feedback call with an admission counselor. The only feedback she had for me was my GPA was on the lower end, but that was it. But you need to know every time you're talking to them, it's an interview. Even though if it's an informal call, it's an interview. So you need to present yourself. Even in that call, I reiterated why I'm a good fit. These are my experiences. This is what I will add to the community. And you need to mention it in a very subtle manner. Do not be like, oh, please take me. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be husband. Don't be desperate because when I was talking to her, I had already received offers from Cornell and NYU. So I told her, I have these two offers. She said, you'll hear back by mid May. So I was like, I cannot wait this long because I have to answer these other universities. And if I start pursuing that, even if you take me, I wouldn't be able to commit. I was bold enough to say that to the counselor. So she also knows that we both are selecting each other. It's not a one sided thing where I am desperate enough to get in. That's when she also said, okay, you'll hear back soon. And I got my admit within 2 days. Don't be rude, but also don't be too soft. Don't be desperate to get in. Be who you are. We are both selecting each other. We both are benefiting from this relationship. It's not, I'm the only one benefiting from this.
True that a great school also needs a fantastic student as much as a fantastic student needs a great school. So, no two ways about it. Sumit, if you were to think back on this entire process and say that, look, I would probably do this better or would probably not do that, what would be those one or two things that you would want to call out?
I would not apply for MBA programs. I applied for it in the moment as a backup, but thinking back, there was no need. I would not apply for MBA. In the process of examinations, I would keep my GPA up. If you guys are still in college, like my GPA was not bad. It was 3.56 or something on a scale of 4. Try to maintain your GPA if you are aiming for the top school. Don't get it below 3.7. Pay attention to your GRE scores. I would study more seriously for GRE. I just gave the exam. I did not study too much. I would study more for that exam. And then if a certain program does not make sense to you, do not apply to that program.
Fair enough. And any advice in terms of having a mentor such as us or doing this process alone? Try to answer the question in terms of what is the value that a mentor brings to the table, and in what scenarios can a student do this entire process by himself or herself.
Sure. I think it totally depends on students' capabilities. There are people who go to Yale, Harvard, and they apply on their own. I knew I needed help. So now, what kind of counselor do you need? It also depends on the student's profile. If I personally were to go to San Jose State University or something like that, I would not hire your service. I can get it done on my own. Sure, you can hire the best counselor for everything, but you need to know yourself. You need to be very self aware. I knew that my profile is good, my experience is good. I have the capability to get into one of these universities, but I need mentorship and guidance to get in one. But don't lie to yourself. If you know your profile is not good enough to get into one of those top 10 universities, then I would not take the best counselor because you don't need a neurosurgeon to put a band-aid. You can hire the best neurosurgeon, sure, but it's not value for your money. Anyone can put a band-aid. If you are applying to San Jose State, you can do it on your own. But if you think your profile is good and you need to get into one of the top schools, then this is the service you need. This is the guidance you need. And this is the level of professionalism you need. I was very happy because this was a very professional environment. We were on time every single time. We were meeting deadlines. It was not like, oh, yeah, okay, let's do that 2 months later or let's do that 2 weeks later. No, we were very professional and serious about the process. And that's what you need to get into one of these universities. So if you believe you are good enough, then this is a service you would need for guidance. Get that one push to get into that university. But if you are getting into any state university, you don't need this service. I think you can do it on your own.
Thank you so much for the kind words. Like I've said, it's your hustle that distinguishes you. I certainly hope that you continue on the good path that you started. Let's stay in touch. It's been wonderful knowing you. And I certainly wish that you do well in your future.